Hello and welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast. I will be your host today, Jerry Garcia, and I am going to be interviewing a wonderful guest. We have Amanda Larson with us with AMA X Equity is her company, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about commercial real estate investing, her journey to getting involved with that, and tie in some of the aspects of her father being a business owner and involved in real estate and some contracting. Let's kind of get started. How are you doing today, Amanda?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Jerry. I'm really excited to be here, and hopefully we can share some knowledge with your listeners today.
Absolutely. So why don't we start a little bit with your father? You said he owned some contracting businesses. Well, what kind of businesses did he own influenced what you do?
Yeah, so it was one business, but he did pretty much everything. It was kind of like a one-stop shop for home repairs and remodels. Prior to being a contractor, he was a real estate agent for a while, so he worked with a lot of real estate agents just on getting homes prepared for sale or whatever needed to happen. But pretty much anything from laying tile to modeling to additions, building the fence in the backyard, mold, plumbing, he did it all. So it was, if he didn't know how to do
Awesome.
it, he'd find somebody that would.
Perfect. Was he doing any flipping?
He did do flipping on the side, and he still does, actually, just for fun. Everyone
Sure.
has
Yeah, I find a
definition of fun.
Absolutely, yeah. I find a lot of contractors that's something they kind of like to do on the side, like you said, outside of their main business. No, that's great. And so tell me a little bit about AMA X and what you're doing and where you're doing it, and let's dig into that a little bit.
Focuses primarily on multifamily syndications right now. I guess I got involved in real estate back in 2010. I bought a single family house. And it was during the downturn. It was a foreclosure. Had my dad's help remodeling it all. And dabbled in the single family space for a while and started investing as a limited partner. I think it was around 2018 I started investing and found out that I really enjoyed it. I really liked the business side of it. It was more of a business than owning a portfolio of single families, I felt. Just kept digging in further and further. After investing as a limited partner a couple of times, I transitioned into being a general partner, and now I syndicate my own deals.
That's excellent. One of the things I like to talk about quite a bit is the difference between investing in single-family portfolios versus multifamily. The big reason why is I feel like it's just a much more scalable operation. Is that kind of what drove you from one to the other?
Definitely. So being a single-family, I guess owning single-family is a full-time job in itself. Generally, you can't hire a property manager. It's going to eat into your cash flow. You really need to have a bucket list of contractors, and anything that can happen, you're the first point of contact. It's really hard to scale. And then you go into multifamily, it's more about operating a business that happens to be real estate. You can hire a full-time property manager, full-time maintenance, and my job as a syndicator is to make sure that the business stays on track, not to make sure that so-and-so's refrigerator is working or that their leak is repaired. Other people can take care of that for me. That's not my expertise. Besides, despite my dad can fix anything, I didn't acquire that skill set from him. I'd rather have other people do it for me. I know how to stay in my lane. We'll put it that way.
No, exactly. And I think it's an excellent point, because we mostly speak to business operators here, and I think that's kind of the beauty of multifamily syndication in relation to business is they're very similar. One of my main focuses is acquiring businesses, and that's essentially all you're doing. You're just acquiring a business that happens to be real estate, right? It operates in very much the same way. You're looking to increase efficiency within that business, and there's a lot of similarities drawn there, which is why I think I was so drawn to multifamily in the first place. When your dad was started, you learned single family, I assume, because I'm assuming he was doing some of that same kind of stuff.
He does own single family, and he worked on it a lot. He was the point of contact to fix everything, to get everything leased, do all the tours, to make sure everyone is paying rent. It's more effort than people recognize. Oftentimes it's sold as a stream of passive income, but in my experience and talking to a lot of other investors, it's just not passive. You're putting a lot of work into it. Doesn't mean it's not worthwhile, but you need to enjoy it. Otherwise it will burn you out, I feel like.
Sure. Now you're operating, and so you have a team with you. That's where are you guys shopping for properties?
I'm in Texas, and everyone's moving to Texas. Primarily, I look in Texas. So I'm in Houston, and I really like the Houston and Dallas markets. Population growth, a lot of companies are moving here. Good, strong economic indicators. That's where I focus right
And
now.
what? No, great. What size of real estate are you looking at?
I look at, so in order to make it scalable and in order to make sure that you are not the person renting units or fixing things, I like to look at things around 80 units and more. That gives enough cushion for full-time property management and full-time maintenance. The number count, and then up to 250. We closed on a 260 unit property about 18 months ago. That's kind of the upper end.
Great. Go back to how you got started. What got you started in the single family element, and then how did that transition? What kind of drove that? How did that all kind of start? I like to kind of tell about the beginnings of this so people can kind of see that path.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone has a path and a journey in real estate. So the single family started influenced from my family. They always owned single family, and I was just always taught that real estate's a good investment. People pay your mortgage and you collect the difference from the mortgage to the rent. While knowing that, I also saw that it was a lot of work. I started investing in single family because I thought that I should, knowing that I should, but I never really wanted to, if that makes sense. I started exploring different ways of investing, and I read that little book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If your listeners haven't read that, definitely read it. And learned different ways of investing in real estate. And then I ended up being a local meetup. They were talking about syndication. That was brand new to me. I didn't know that there was a way to invest in an apartment complex or a large commercial facility or whatever it is, and pool your money together and then actually invest as a passive investment. 100% passive, no work other than doing your research and due diligence on the operator and the deal. So once I learned about that, then I never looked the other direction, right? I didn't buy any more single family, and it's been full steam ahead since then. Got into a few
that's great.
passive investing deals. I'm still working full time, so my background is engineering and construction. I worked as a site engineer for quite a while, and then as a design engineer. Never really intended to leave my job, really liking it. I guess in my industry, it was a cyclical industry, we could say, so plenty of layoffs every couple years. Tired of the volatility and went full-time real estate.
Oh, I love that. That's very similar to how I got started. I was working in mortgages at the time, and similar type of thing. I kept getting emails from somebody who was a multifamily syndicator. Didn't know much about it, and honestly, same thing. We hit a slow period, and I decided to attend a conference, open this whole other side of real estate that I really just wasn't even aware of, even working in real estate. It's very eye-opening to realize that you've been taught, investing was the single family, right? You buy a property, you rent it out, hope it cash flows a little bit, hope that you factored in all of your major expenses correctly. But yeah, once you see that world of like, oh, you can be a part of this gigantic purchase, especially on the passive side, you're on the active side where you're out there doing the work and finding the deals. But yeah, if somebody's interested and they're accredited, they can reach out and they can just contribute some capital toward that and see some of the benefits of it.
That is the passive side. Someone's always doing the work in single family and in multifamily. There's someone doing the work, but at least in multifamily, there's an option of that not being you. Jerry, I'll touch on one more point that you made. In single family, oftentimes you hope that you factored in enough money for XYZ, for capital expenditures, or in case something goes wrong. And oftentimes, because it's one house or two houses, one thing going wrong can ruin your cash flow in a heartbeat. Absolutely. And when you have 80, 100, 150 units, there's more margin for error. You still have to be careful, but one storm or one air conditioner doesn't ruin your year.
I think that's one of the things. People get involved in real estate their first time. Most of us are amateurs. We're using very simple calculations. Hey, I can rent this property out for $2,000 a month and my mortgage is only $1,500 a month, right? So you think in your mind, okay, great, I'm making $500 a month cash flow.
Yeah.
But if you haven't gone through the entire process to factor in at a certain point, this is going to break, at a certain point, I'm going to have to replace this. Then that $500 a month, the second a water heater breaks, takes out a big chunk of your cash flow that first year. Takes us two things to break or that need to be replaced, and all of a sudden your cash flow for that year or maybe a couple years is completely wiped out. If you lose a tenant on a single family home, you are 100% vacant versus if you have, like you're saying, a 200 unit, you can have 20 people vacate and you're still 90% occupied.
Yes, it smooths things out. The level of, I guess, sophistication is also, I think there's more metrics to follow in multifamily. Like, you have more examples to follow of how the business runs. Like, you buy the business with all the cash flow statements, the balance sheet, how it's been operating and what has broken recently or the past 12 months. And you can factor that into your own business model. Whereas a single family, you don't have that. You're just hoping that
you only have the word of the previous owner, maybe have some receipts for some repairs that have been done or appliances that have been replaced, right?
If you're a contractor, maybe many of your listeners, you have a better idea, but the average person...
Well, and keep in mind, like I said, you're usually operating alone on a single family, maybe with a spouse or maybe with a partner, but in a multifamily, you have a team, right? You have people who are experts in their specific niche of what you guys do, and you have the opportunity to bounce ideas off each other and really help each other out.
It's a team sport, definitely, in multifamily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you gone full cycle in any of your deals yet, or are you guys still in the process of executing plans?
I have one limited partner deal that went full cycle, and then everything else is still cycling along.
You've been growing, scaling, getting new properties, trying to get them kind of up to par. What's that been like for you? Any major disasters or?
I think the last couple years have been interesting. Don't realize the situation or are familiar with the situation. Interest rates have been going up, and a lot of properties have been stressed because they were on variable rate loans. Thankfully, all of my GP deals are doing well. One of them is on fixed rate. That's doing fine. We're distributing. It's going really well. It's in Houston. And then I have one general partnership that's on a variable rate loan. But again, that one's doing fine. We're making payments. We're refinancing hopefully in the next 6 months. Getting out of that. We didn't dodge a bullet, but there's a few operators out there who are struggling with the current situation. That said, right now is a really great opportunity to get into the market. Prices are 20 to 25% less than they were at the peak. And if you can buy a house at 25% discount, it's the same as buying business at 25% discount. Hoping to acquire more deals in the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, and that is one of the huge benefits to kind of a downward turn, right? There's opportunity in every sort of market.
Yep.
And when you have a situation like we've seen, like you mentioned, interest rates are higher. There's a lot of people with debt that they're having trouble servicing, whether they need to bring on partners or they just need to sell and get out of a deal while they can before they get too far underwater. There's opportunity right now. There's great deals to be had out there. It's very important to know who you're working with and know that they understand kind of what they're doing in this sort of market. Now, fixed debt is a premium right now if you can get it because we just don't know where things are going. Or it could be seen as the opposite, right? If you think we're at the top of interest rates, then a variable rate might be great because you might see your costs come down over time, but the risks that are there on either side. Things are going to get way worse, and others think they're going to get way better. We're also in an election year, which drives those conversations even more polarizing. There's a lot on either side to be said, and the main point is you've got to be able to operate in any sort of market. And you have to have a plan going into any sort of market for how you're going to come out the other side. And survive the bad times and then thrive in the good.
There's always opportunity, finding that opportunity and executing on it.
Absolutely. So what's kind of your projection for your company? Are you guys still looking to acquire more? Are you looking to bring some of these through full cycle? You guys are still continuing to grow, and are you growing your team?
Right now, I partner with a few different people. Company is just me, and then when it comes to syndicating deals, I partner with the people where we make a full team and fill all the spaces. When it comes to acquiring a deal, you need people who can raise capital, who can operate the deal operate the property for the next 3, 5, 7 years, and who can stay on top of things every single week at the asset management calls, stay on top of insurance, and then also go out and look for new opportunities. Right now, my focus is on underwriting new deals. I always have deals coming into my inbox that I look at and I analyze and I underwrite, that I tour and go meet with brokers. and then raising capital. I partner with people who are more on the operations side.
So let's talk about your underwriting a little bit. What are some of the biggest things you're looking for when you see an opportunity come across your desk and maybe it looks like it's a good deal when you first take a look? What are some of those things that you've uncovered to help you understand that maybe this deal wasn't as good as it looked?
I think so. There's a few things where I won't call them red flags, but unless you have seen a lot of deals and underwritten a lot of deals, you can notice some nuances. So one thing that I see more right now is just a rate of delinquency. So maybe your property is, or the property being sold is, call it 90% occupied, meaning only 10% vacant. But in reality, it's maybe 80% economically occupied, meaning, an extra 10% are not paying full rent, or they have discounts, or they're just delinquent. And so that's something I definitely look at. Also, how much bad debt they're writing off. That means people that they've had to evict, and then they've written off that whole balance. So you'll see the month-to-month balance, and then to see the full balance, you also need to look at a line item called bad debt, which means that's just how much they're writing off every single month because people haven't paid their rent and they're moving out. And so that's something I've been seeing creep up in the last, call it 6 months. And so that's one of the first line items that I look at, definitely. I would rather have 80 out of 100 people paying full rent than 90 people living there and 10 extra not paying rent at all. So it's...
Sure.
You're inheriting problems.
Well, you can't fill units that are already filled, right?
That's just personal.
Yeah. If there's somebody staying there, you can't easily fill that unit. You have to go through a whole eviction process in order to be able to start collecting rent for that unit. If it's just vacant, you can adjust marketing, make deals to get people in the door and get some money coming in. If you've got someone sitting there not making payments, this is the equivalent of accounts receivable in a business, right? Where you've done some work, invoices have been sent, and the longer that account stays receivable, that means that the longer you're not getting paid and the more you're fronting to do work on new deals, on new services that need to be completed, you're having to front that out of pocket until you can actually make those collections.
Yeah, great comparison. And I think we were talking earlier before the call, making sure that the people that they have moving in are qualified tenants. That's another thing, is they pack it full and they're not there long enough to get a good rental history, how consistently they pay. So you think you're getting a great deal and they're at market rent. You don't realize until you own the property for 6 months that half these people shouldn't be there to begin with. So
yeah, there wasn't a lot of screening done or income verifications, things like that. No, that's an excellent point.
Being aware of not the game necessarily, but it's a common practice, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what you're doing. This is why knowing the operators and who you're working with and what they know is just as important as the deal that you're getting into itself. I mean, knowing what to look for on the front end to know that you've gotten yourself into a good deal, because most of the money is made on the purchase, right?
Yep.
You've got to make the right purchase in order for that deal to be very profitable in the long run.
An excellent point on people running the business, because bad operators or poor operators can make a great deal go sideways, just like a business owner, right? But you can have an okay business or an okay property, but if you have great operators and people who are just dialed in and on top of things and just get it running like clockwork, it can be a really good performer. If you're investing passively, find operators that you really trust and who are going to go out there and be stewards of your capital and focus on the business.
Just knowing that the people working on that deal know what they're doing is hugely important.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I like to always try and finish things off with asking for a book that you recommend, something that kind of taught you something or gave you some nugget of insight that allowed you to kind of get yourself to where you're at today.
Well, I mentioned the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which is almost over-mentioned. So I'll mention another one. It's Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy. It's
great book.
Have you read it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think I'll read that one and reread it a few times. A big fan of that one.
Yeah, that's one that I want to reread, actually. I've read it once. That's one I wanted to get back into. It was great. Excellent book. Lots of just insight into how your everyday actions can have such a big impact.
It's mindset, and then there's also strategies and tactics to guide you through. There's actionable steps that you can take to achieve your goals and start thinking bigger. I recommend that to anyone who likes that kind of book.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you and learn kind of more about what you're doing and maybe get involved with some investing, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yes, so probably the best way is to go to my website. It's AMA X Equity, so AMAXequity.com. An interest form or you contact me form, and that'll go directly to me. And then you can follow me on socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter and Facebook.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome getting to talk to you and learning a lot about what you do. And thanks for helping us teach the audience an excellent strategy on really wealth creation.
No, thank you, Jerry. It's great being on the show, and look forward to hopefully being back on again sometime.
We'll definitely have you back. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Jerry.